Classic FM 94.3 Abuja, the station that plays every song you know. So you're in the Classic Lounge. My name is Faith. It's 9 minutes gone past 12 noon. Welcome to the show. I did mention that we're going to be having a special guest in the studio today for the Amazon Lounge, and we'll be talking about the spike and the hike in sexual gender-based violence and, of course, related matters. And I have in the studio, very, very happy to have in the studio because, I mean, I think I told her that, but I'm going to mention it again. She's the very first female lawmaker I'm having in the studio, so it feels really good. To have her here. I have in the studio a member of the House of Representatives, Honorable Adewumi Onanuga. All right, and she's also the chairperson of the House of Representatives Committee on Women Affairs and Social Development. Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
All right, so the documentary you heard was produced by the head of news for Classic FM, Raliat Adeneko, highlighting the issues of rape and, of course, the increase and the surge that we have seen all through the lockdown, because it does seem like a number of people that could escape the house, where the abusers are, over this rape incidents, could not do that, anymore because they had to be in the house with them. They didn't have the option of getting out of the house. So, of course, we have report an incident of a rise in cases. We're going to start talking about that shortly, but I just need to ask this because I was going through list. There was actually a particular article, I think that was on this day, talking about the Amazons of the Ninth Assembly, and of course you were mentioned, ma. Let's talk about the fact that in the entire House of Assembly, National Assembly, I beg your pardon, whether you're talking about the House of Representatives or the Senate, we have very few women, there. And I'm saying that because, like I said, you're the very first woman I would have in the studio as a lawmaker. I've had a lot of lawmakers on this show, but you're the very first female. And you used to be 19, but now you're 18. And that is a combination of both the Senate and the House of Representatives. I mean, can we talk about that? The disproportionate numbers.
Thank you very much, and it's really good to be here. Since you want to start with the number of the female legislators in the National Assembly, we discussed this. This was really rife when we first got inaugurated. Everybody was really amazed at the disparity, and I kept saying to people that until we begin to realize that women are the game changers, until all the political parties begin to realize that women are the game changers and they're the ones who can bring better governance to the people, then we would continue to see the marginalization. Now, let me explain what I mean. What I mean is, in Nigeria, it's a man's world. They say it's a man's world in the whole world, but hey, in Nigeria, I'm saying it's a man's world. It's very difficult for you to see two men say, okay, you know what, I'm going to stand back and let this woman, go ahead and show us her skills. It's very, very rare. It's not that it doesn't happen. It does happen, but it's very, very rare, which is what translates into most political parties saying, we think that this is the man that can represent us. We think that this is the man that can take our ticket and run with it. Now, only until recently have we seen them realizing that, oh, if we give this woman the opportunity, then we can have better scores. Because really and truly, all that the party is about are the women. It's the women who makes everything about the party go viral. It's the women who stand up and talk to other women, talk to other men, talk to everybody to say, we think you should be a part of our political party. So now the women are also beginning to say, you know what, we've been behind you for so long, and we think we have enough well-educated, well-qualified women who can also represent us. So most political parties are seeing that, that's the way to go.
Does money matter in this instance? Because sometimes, people allude to the fact that women don't have the war chest of money that, the men have.
Doesn't money matter in the political system in Nigeria? Yes, money does matter. And that's why I said when the women realize that, look, this is the way to go. There are some women who don't even have money, but they have the clout. They have the goodwill of being there for other women for so long. And they have used that goodwill to garner a lot of support for the men who are contesting. So when the women began to realize, look, I'm using my goodwill, whatever little money that I have, I'm using everything that I have to support this man to be given the party ticket. Why can't I do the same for myself? And then more and more women are now standing up to be counted. Because yes, it takes a lot of money, and most of the women who are contesting have even used that money before they even thought about themselves to say, look, I think I should contest. So when they began to realize, you know what, why can't I contest myself? So yes, it does take a lot of money, and that's one of the problems that we have. Well, we would have seen more women, but for the fact that it's so expensive to get into the political scene.
In Nigeria. I mean, there's a lot more to talk about where this is concerned, and there's a lot more I would have loved to raise. But because of time, we would move on quickly to, the issue of sexual gender-based violence. But let me also ask this before I move from that, totally. Being a woman in the 9th Assembly, what impact do you think women have made? The fact that the women are so few, has it also affected impacts and contribution, on the floor of the House, on the floor of the Senate?
I don't want to believe so, because let me start from the Senate. You see that most of the time, there is no time in that the Senate sits, to my understanding, that the women are not up and doing. There are no bills that the men are putting on the floor of the House that the women are not also doing the same. So it's not about, I don't think we should begin to compare whether the women are performing or whether the men are performing. The thing is, all individuals are in those seats with particular reasons. They have their own reasons, and they have the needs of their constituents. And therefore, they get up at the appropriate time that they feel is appropriate to come up with their bills, to come up with their motions, to come up with, everything that they feel that they should be, doing on the floor of the House. And I can tell you for free that the women, especially in the House of Representatives, are not behind. We are up to the task, and we. I
think the reason why I asked that is because there was an equality bill that seems to have suffered a setback at some point. So when you're talking about issues, especially that concern women, people wonder if perhaps there were more women, there'll be louder voices, to push them through. That's what I mean. That's what I want to get clarification on.
Well, if with regards to the equality bill has suffered a lot of setbacks, and I keep saying to the people that it's about time we also sit back and say to ourselves, why are we having these problems? Is equality really our problem? No, equality is not our problem. The Constitution has given us the provision of equality, so we do have that. However, equity is the problem. So maybe we should go forth and say, you know what, we want an equity bill.
Are you going to be introducing that?
I do not want to say yes or no.
Okay.
But we've sat down, a lot of us have sat down and said to ourselves, why equality? Why not equity? And we're working on, something in that regards that would make it balanced, because the men are saying, okay, if the Constitution says there is equality, and you're now saying you want another equality, that means you're saying that the 50% that belongs to the men should be cut again to another 50%. So now you want 75%, you want to give us 25%. Are we going to agree? No, they will not agree. So we need to say, look, okay, we're all standing on the same pedestal. However, you're taller than I am, so we cannot see the same things. How do we come to where we can be at the same level together to work this out? So that's where we're going with the equity bill. Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. I look forward to seeing the update on that. You represent Ikenne Shagamu Remo North constituency in Ogun State, and you are also the chairperson of the House of Representatives Committee on Women Affairs and Social Development, which is a very, very important committee. Let's talk about the fact that we've had a rise in sexual gender-based violence. I mean, I on my own like to argue that these cases have always been there, but they're reported now, and then the social media to amplify. But some people feel that there has also still been a spike. Let's talk about what you think of these cases that every day there's a case on sexual based violence. There is a rape case. There is a defilement case. I want to get your thoughts on that as a chairman of that committee.
Well, like you said, there's been a spike. It's not that there's really been a spike. It's that more people now have enough time on their hands to report what is happening. More people now have the confidence to say, if I make this public, then maybe some other people would realize that there's a problem. The problem has been there all along. It hasn't been this loud and this known because when it happens, maybe the people around the homes have gone to their jobs, have gone to the market, have gone to the farms, and they don't realize that we need to let people know that this is happening. But now there are more people at home, and the perpetrators, let me say, because I don't want to say the men, because men are also being abused. Yes. So the perpetrators at this point in time now get seen, they get caught, because more people are around to see them perpetrate this evil, this act. Now, is it right? No, it's not right. Now, why are we concerned? Everybody should be concerned, because now you feel that it's somebody else's child. Don't even think maybe it can be your child, but however, that child has been dehumanized. So how do you support that kind of child? How do you make sure that that child or that person gets justice? Which is what we're all, after, and making sure that this gets done. So we're in partnership with a lot of people, the UNFPA, the EU also came in. We've been talking I've been talking to Yaga, I've been talking to a lot of people, and the Minister for Women Affairs also, after all the meetings that we've been having, has taken it to the Federal Executive Council, and they've set up a committee, a special gender-based committee, to begin to deal with these issues. In our next budget, we're also trying to push for specific line in the budget to cater for gender-based violence.
Because I was going to ask about that, the issue of a shelter. For some of these people, the case of reporting means that they might be sent out of their homes. Some mothers that would want to go against family and say, oh, my brother or my husband raped my child, they're told to not do it, and they look at the fact that they don't have anywhere else to go, and so they do not report. So sometimes they do need a place to go. I mean, is that part of a consideration?
Yes, in the gender budgeting, those are the things that we're looking at. We're looking at having specific, the gender-based specific line item in the budget is going to cater for all those kind of issues. We have an agency under the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs that deals with women development. So they're also going to be getting specific line budgets in their own budget also to cater for housing these women. Even though we already have shelters, we're going to make sure that they get more financial support so they can expand their hostels to cater for more people that they may need to take in.
Okay. NAPTIP, of course, has put this issue of the national, sex offenders register, and recently your state also, put out their own register, which is very commendable. Very few states, I know Okiti State has done that, in Lagos State, and then your state, Ogun State, has also put out, a sex offenders register. Tell me about that.
My first lady, the first lady of Ogun State, Her Excellency Bamidele Abiodun, is very passionate about women issues. Without a doubt, as is so many other people. But I'm being specific about her because she's very concerned about the rape, the rape issues and the proliferation of all these rape cases, and she's been pushing so hard for the Ministry of Women Affairs to make sure that they get this sexual offenders register out there so that we can begin to name and shame. Even though the federal ministry also, the Ministry of Humanitarian, I think they were the ones that actually did the national sexual
yes,
offenders register.
pushed by NAPTIP, the
Yes,
agency.
and you know that's like an offshoot of that, and we're encouraging other states to do the same. But it's easier for states that have domesticated the VAP Act to go ahead and open the sexual offenders register. Also realize that in this country we have a lot of cultural and religious and so many problems that are not allowing most other states to domesticate this act. So for the states that have domesticated the VAP Act, it's easier for them to say, you know, we can begin to name and shame.
Let's talk about states domesticating, because I know that a little over a month ago, you moderated a meeting between state houses of assembly, the speakers, and the speaker of the House of Representatives.
Yes.
And he was talking about the fact that he knew that there were a lot of other states who have not domesticated, whether you're talking about the Child Right Act or the VAP Act, and he was asking for a way to be able to breach that. What help do they need? How do we accommodate, whether it's a cultural or religious, constraints to make it work? And he was saying that, there was going to be resolutions, to the state legislators, to domesticate it. I want to know where that has gotten to. What is the update on that?
Well, before that meeting, Bauchi State had the VAP Act brought back to them, and they were ready to domesticate it. After that meeting, they actually domesticated it, and,
yes.
and it was passed. And one of the charges that Mr. Speaker, the Right Honourable Speaker, Right Honourable Femi Gbajabiamila, gave to the chairman of the Speakers Forum for the Northeast, I think it was, not Northeast, who was also the Speaker of Bauchi State House of Assembly, was he charged him to get all the other speakers within his zone to domesticate that act. And as we speak today, he's actually gone ahead, talked to them. We're expecting that we will see more from that zone actually domesticating that act, as we're expecting to see more and more states domesticating it. However, one of the problems that we understood was some states believe that they were not carried along when the VAP Act was going to be passed. And if they had been carried along, they would have been able to say to the promulgators or the propagators then that, in our own state, this may not work for us. So maybe you shouldn't put it there, or you reword it so that it can work, for our state, and our people would not have their backs up when we try to let them understand that this is going to be in the act. So, we learn every day, and as it's going along, we understand what the problems are, and we're trying to work with them to say, you know what, okay, that's the problem, we'll bring in some amendments. However, it needs to be domesticated before we can actually amend it. So we are on there, and we are making so much progress, I can tell you that for free.
The VAP Act, seems to be even a little more easily acceptable than the Child Right Act, especially for, some core northern states. I have had a senator here that told me that the Child Right Act was never going to be passed in his state or in some other northern state, and he mentioned constraints about their religion and their culture. So, the Child Right Act dates back to, 2003, and then the VAP Act is 2015. So let's talk about even making sure that, people can be able to accommodate whether it is a religious constraint or cultural constraint, and still be able to protect, vulnerable girls and women. Which we're going to talk about the Child Right Act. How can that be done?
That's a very deep question, and I'll tell you it's deep because, when people are set in their ways, it's either they hang on to religion, or they hang on to culture, or they hang on to heritage. Now, where I come from, there's an adage that says the wicked person knows that he's wicked, but he's just waiting for somebody else to tell him that, hey, you're wicked. So Now, it's not a matter of wickedness. That's just it's a saying, which means that most of these people know that it is wrong for you to have somebody else's child because the parents are in dire poverty, for you to now take that child and say, go out on the streets and begin to beg for me. And then whatever money you bring to me. And then I'm going to be in charge of feeding you. And they don't clothe them anyway, feeding you and doing all sorts for you. So when you say to that person that child you're telling to go out and beg for you, or that child that you're telling to go and work in your factory has a right, they will look at you and say, yeah, that child has a right, but I also have a right to make money. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's not really a matter of it's not a matter of religious belief now. It's a matter of how much conscience do we have? And these people have their own children. They wouldn't tell their children to go and do the same. And they wouldn't say to their children, oh, you don't have any rights. Their children even have more rights than adults. But they don't see that when it comes to somebody else's child. So we go around and we're making so much noise to say this Child Rights Act needs to be domesticated. The children need to have their own rights. The children need to... I had 3 children, well, they're not children, they're adults, although they're under 16. They were in my office yesterday, and they were concerned about the age of consent of the girl child. The age of consent to have sexual relationship or to be sexually active. In Nigeria, the age of consent is 11. And these children are 15. They didn't come to fight for their own right because they were already over 11. But they came to fight for the children who couldn't speak for themselves. How many people who are encouraging for the Child Rights Act not to be passed can stand up and say that and fight for those children? Not a lot.
So what can we do about it? Because I'm asking because there are also your colleagues, lawmakers, who have this view as well, you know, and it is not just a view that they hold alone, you know, it goes on to state houses of assembly and, you know, leaders of communities and things like that. How do we bridge it? What can be done?
We have to continue to talk about it. We need to continue to appeal to their consciences. Even if they don't have any, we need to make sure we resuscitate them. Because everybody has a conscience.
But it's not a conversation you can have with your colleagues.
It's not only my colleagues. You know, sometimes the hands of my colleagues are even tied. Because they also have people who, when they go back to their constituencies, can stone them to death. So they also have to be very careful. Now, it's not a matter of the person who has come to represent. It's what the people who he's representing wants. And if they say, shut up, we don't want you to talk about it, he will shut up. And if they say, if somebody else stands up to say that they want it, you have to make sure you stand up and you say no. So when they stand up and they say no, it's not because they want to say no. It's because they know that if they don't say no and they go back home, they're going to be in trouble. So it's not even the legislators now that is the problem. It is a whole community, a whole society, a whole
So it's
state.
fighting an orientation, a way of life that they have been used to.
Yes, and not only used to, is what they feel is, how do I say it, their comfort zone. So it's like saying, oh, you want to take this away from us? Then if you take it away from us, how do we survive? And there's so many people in the whole world who are willing to do the jobs that they are taking these children out to do.
Well, it is sad. I hope that, you know, that is something that we can address really, really soon. Let's talk about the fact that special courts for rape is being called for, whether you're looking at NAPTIP or you're looking at the police. They're asking for special courts, you know, so that trials and court cases can move really fast. Is that something you support?
Yes, definitely. I was actually in support of the family court. I think on the day of the African child, we also had a Zoom meeting. It was organized by the Federal Minister of Women Affairs, and I was a part of that meeting. And we were advocating, or a lot of people were advocating for family courts. So when these special courts came up, of course, it would be, you know, if we were to compare and put them side by side, it would actually be doing the same thing. So yes, it is something that I would support, and we're also hoping that, you know, that can see the light of day and get a good ground.
Okay. You moved a motion on removal of taxes from sanitary pads. I thought that was quite interesting. Something that federal government seemed to have bought into as well. But there are people who are saying, you know what, just give it out for free. Let's talk about that. And what made you decide to, pursue that?
You know, we need to be honest. We need to be fair, and we need to understand that production in Nigeria it costs a lot of money. So when you say to a manufacturer that has to pay diesel, that has to take care of his staff, that has to pay his staff, that needs to get in the raw materials and all that, you can't tell him to do something for free. The federal government does not produce sanitary towels.
Oh.
You know, some companies do. Now, aside from the fact that they need to pay for all this power to generate their manufacturing processes, then they also need to pay tax. So if we take the tax away from them, then of course the cost that would have gone on to the price of the sanitary towels would be taken off. You know, so that would reduce the cost. So that let's start somewhere. People just go on, they just open them up and they say, SGBV, it can't be free because it's costing the person who's producing it some kind of money, and we need to be fair about that. So, but if we say the additional cost that would make it more expensive should be taken off, then the companies will sit and say, you know what, they've given us, some slack here. So why don't we cut, the people, the end users, some slack as well. So that's why, I agitated that and said, let's reduce, or let's take off the tax on sanitary towels. And, if not for the pandemic and the COVID that has reduced, that has caused a lot of things to shut down, we were actually going to have a summit and have a training session for young ladies. We had people who wanted to come and teach them, especially those in the rural areas, how to make reusable sanitary towels. If you start from there,
commendable.
If you start from there and they're making their own reusable sanitary towels, then it's an option. It would be an option. If I want to buy a disposable sanitary towel, then that means I have the money. But if I don't have the money and I can make a reusable one, for those who have learned how to make it, they can make so much more and begin to give their friends for free. So those are the things that we're working on, and it's just a pity that a lot of people just want to see, and then the social media hasn't made it easy anyway. They just something goes on, everybody just goes on it, and they keep making their own comments, whether it makes sense, whether it's objective, whether it's subjective. They just say what they want. But you need to remain focused and say, you know what, it doesn't matter what you say, how you say it. This is what I think is right, and I'm just going to continue to push for it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let's go on a very short break. I still have in the studio Honorable Adewumi Onanuga. She's the chairman for the House Committee, that's in the House of Reps for Women Affairs and Social Development. Great to still have you here on the show, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
So there was this particular, report about CSOs asking for rape, and sexual violence to be treated as a security threat, and be seen as an emergency in Nigeria. I guess also because of the rampant nature of the stories that we hear on a regular basis. They're asking for this to be seen as a security threat, as an emergency, and it should also rank as a priority. Do you think that we're taking it seriously enough as a country?
To be ranked as priority, yes, I agree. To be seen as a security threat, I am not so sure I agree with that, because yes, it kills the victims. It kills their morale. It damages them mentally, physically, in all ways. Yes, it's dehumanizing. To call it a security threat, sometimes when I sit there and say to people, aside from the fact that the perpetrators have mental disorders, there's something wrong with them mentally, for them to think of even perpetrating this kind of evil. And when someone is mentally deranged like that, even if the person has a good job, they will still go and perpetrate all this evil. We should take it more seriously, yes. We should make sure that a lot of people are more engaged in lucrative things that would make them probably happier, make them able to sustain, a good lifestyle. But I do not agree that it's a security threat. The security threat we have at the moment, how well are we coping?
Let me frame this question this way. You are saying that maybe if they have jobs to do and things like that. I mean, even in very developed countries, sexual gender-based violence is still a big deal. It's still a thing. It's still very rampant. So sometimes it's not necessarily that. There are people who have argued that we have a rape culture, or that this is some sort of a pandemic, or they call it a shadow pandemic that we have. Do you agree with that this is some sort of a pandemic on our hands? Do you think that we have a rape culture? Because the people who would argue that it is not about whether the person has a worthwhile job. It is just what they are and what they do, and it is wrong.
Yes, it is. It's a shadow pandemic. I agree with that, and we discussed that. While we were having one of the Zoom meetings. We agree that it's a shadow pandemic. Yes. How are we tackling the pandemic that we have right now? We have identified some things that could help us to keep it at bay. The same thing with rape. Now we're asking that, more people be vigilant. Make sure that, your kids know, maybe give them a password. If anybody else wants to pick them up, if they don't know the password, they can't pick them up, because they actually turn these children into different corners to perpetrate this evil. Now, some people, like I said, it's a mental disorder.
Do you think we have a rape culture in Nigeria?
I don't think so. That's really difficult for me. I don't think we have a rape culture, because it's not a culture. It's someone who is mentally disordered, the that's doing this.
So you think everybody who rapes and everybody who perpetrates sexual violence, they have a mental disorder?
They must have a mental disorder. No, but they must have a mental disorder. Now,
if we look at it that way, we can look at it that anybody who commits a crime, has some kind of mental disorder.
Don't they?
They're criminals.
Are they normal?
Does that even come into the question? If somebody steals something, do you have a conversation about whether they're normal or not, or you just say that they committed a crime?
But you know that even kleptomanias have been assigned or have been said to be having some kind of mental imbalance.
Yes.
Being able to go and take some.
Yeah, kleptomania. It is a disorder, but not everybody who steals has kleptomania.
I agree with you. I'm just saying that for you to have gone to take something that belongs to somebody else, you know that it is wrong. You know that it doesn't belong to you. Even if the person put it in at the tip of your nose, it's not yours. Why should you take it? There's something wrong with you. I mean, it's an urge that is wrong, and you shouldn't have it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's my own angle. I may be wrong, but that's my angle.
But because some people might argue that it will seem like a ready excuse for people who perpetrate this kind of thing to say, oh, you know what, like a lot of them say, the devil made me do it, or I didn't know what I was doing. It can stand as an excuse as opposed to seeing it as a criminal offense.
Well, I agree it to be a criminal offense. Now, it's not only those who do it that, some of them are greedy. Some people who steal, they are greedy. They just want to add something that belongs to somebody else to whatever they already have. Now, I'm not making an excuse for anybody who rapes to say they're mentally deranged. I am saying that there's something psychologically wrong with a person to even think of wanting to do that in the first place. It doesn't make it an excuse. It doesn't make it right. It is very, very wrong. But for that person to do it, that person is mentally unstable to even think of wanting to do that in the first place. That's my point. I'm not making any excuse for them, because I'm not even happy with that at all.
Just want to clarify that.
Oh, yes.
A lot of the times people talk about problems with reporting when they go to police stations to report these cases. I know that the IGP has said that they're going to carry out a training for their gender desk to make sure that they're able to tackle these issues. But the police and the way they respond to these issues has been one of the stumbling blocks of people reporting or of the cases moving forward, because sometimes even have the police advise for people to settle out of court when it is a criminal matter, or they start to make the victims, feel like they are the cause of whatever happened to them. If we have this kind of lapse in the police stations, it's going to be hard to deal with this issue. How do we handle that?
We were saying something about capacity building for those specific units in the police department. Each police station really and truly should have a gender unit, should be manned by a woman or a male champion who understands the issues that women go through. Now, when those units are there and dedicated to gender-based violences, those people who are in that unit need to undergo proper training, capacity building, to let them understand, so their emotions will also be worked on, to let them understand that you don't look at somebody who is a victim and make the person the cause. You know, sometimes it has been reported that when people go to the police stations to report, the officer who is there to take the report looks at the person and says, so you went to his house, so you took a shower, so you took your clothes off, so you were on his bed. I mean, when a woman says no, it means no. When a man says no, it means no. So all those things need to be properly trained. They need to be properly trained to let them understand that, you know, when there's a gender-based violation, you need to look at it objectively. Probably empathize with the person and put yourself in that person's position, and look for get all the evidence, get the statements, get it right, and then push for justice for that person. It is not your business what happened, how it happened. Yours is to make sure that you get all the documentations properly done, and you go through the motions of getting that criminal into the courts, into the law courts.
Do you think the punishment that we have right now is suitable? It's okay for rape and all of that?
I don't think so. I think it should be stiffer. I think it should be, I mean, in as much as we need to understand that they also have rights, even though they're perpetrators, they have rights. We should also make sure that they know that when they do something wrong, there are stiffer penalties that would get them to either consider twice before they do it. I mean, something like if they get stiffer jail sentences without an option of parole, or even being
like a life sentence.
Life sentence, and then maybe the first 10 years they get put in isolation. You know, they don't even see anyone. Nobody visits them. They don't visit anybody. They don't talk to anybody. They're in isolation. And then even after 10 years, after 20 years, they can't even think of anything about parole to maybe they're on good behavior. If somebody's in isolation, you don't know whether he's behaving good or not. He's in isolation. So, you know, we need stiffer penalties like that.
Okay, because that's what somebody on Twitter was asking, that he's advocating for rapists and other sexual related cases to be given life sentence.